Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to the second ALTERSEA conference 2022. And I'm Gloria Trulli Estrelita, or you can call me Trulli. I'm a PhD student at EHES Paris, but I'm also one of the founders of ALTERSEA together with Gabriel Facal and Sarah Andrea. And today we have the honor to have Saskia Wieringa here as our chairperson. So I pass the micro to you, Saskia.
Okay, thank you very much, Truly. I'm honored actually to be here on the ALTERSEA conference. I'm very happy with the initiative. I'm a emeritus professor at the University of Amsterdam, but I have been going on and off and living now most of the time in and to Indonesia for the last 40 years. And I'm also the chair of what is called the International People's Tribunal on 1965 mass crimes against humanity in Indonesia. My topic that I've spent most time on is gender and sexuality. So I'm very happy we have a session on that topic here. As you all know, Southeast Asia is a region with enormous diversity, which of course also impacts on gender relations, because gender relations are constitutive of societal power relations. Gender, as we understand it, is a power relation which is both embodied and culturally embedded. It's also fluid and contingent, which is not how conservative forces see it, and that's why it's also such a political issue. And therefore, gender issues, sexuality issues, are deeply implicated in the region's religious, cultural, and political life and its history. I myself learned about the importance of gender and sexual politics when I studied already in the 1980s. I've got a long history there. What is called the event in 1965, which included the genocide of possibly 1 million people in Indonesia. And this genocide was preceded by a slender campaign, a moral sexual slender campaign, a moral sexual panic on the women's movement Gerwani. They were accused of having castrated generals. This is, of course, very hurting for particularly conservative groups. So this was a watershed, because the Indonesian women's movement immediately, from one day to the next almost, from a movement that was internationally very well group of mumbling housewives. And if you look at gender relations in Indonesia, we first notice a gradual change from women being war heroines, although they were often ignored as that, particularly in historiography, also feared as that, via this moral sexual panic to important actors were dependent on the military dictatorship. So when we look at gender and sexuality, it's also a moral phenomenon to be exploited for political gains. Like Suharto, he had to demonstrate the legitimacy of his rule by labeling Gerwani as immoral, sexually pervert, which and shoring up his power by proving he could turn the nation in. Or presently, we get political campaigns which often lack a political agenda because it's personal politics. It's the personality of the leaders that counts, and they don't have political agenda. So the struggle becomes a moral issue over the bodies of women, particularly, and of LGBT persons. And that's why also the issue of sexual citizenship that comes up in this panel is so important. It's also very much a religious issue. I mean, all the region's religions advocate peace and harmony, but also stand by their own so-called truth claims, right? They all think that they've got the perfect truth. And to demonstrate their superiority, over the other religions, again, the bodies of women and LGBT persons are mostly targeted. Well, within this broad field, we have three papers which demonstrate particularly gender issues that are important in this region. Um, the LGBT issue, which comes up in the Filipino paper, um, is of course a topic of much debate. In the region itself, there is a wide diversity of practices from Thailand and Vietnam, which make some progress. Taiwan, of course, we all know, has accepted full equality. But in other countries, there's really a backlash. And we can see, for instance, that happening in Brunei, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And therefore, the Philippines is a very interesting case because, on the one hand, we see both a slow struggle for sexual citizenship, and it's vitally important that that struggle is waged, but we also see a brutal violence in the Philippines, both against trans persons and against butch lesbians who are murdered. Um, Yet, in the Philippines also, it has a history of gender diversity. And that history, of course, was very much derogated by the Catholic Church leaders who abhorred the so-called sins. So actually, a study of LGBT issues in the region is actually also a study on decolonizing sexuality studies. Because if we look at 17th, 18th, and 19th century colonial empires, we looked at their mother countries, um, homosexuals, sodomites, whatever they were called, were condemned, in some countries even executed. So there was absolutely no acceptance at all, which means that the Western idea of progress, right, and this is the dominant view in in Western historiography of the LGBT movement, the Western view of progress from legal issues to medical emancipation to equal rights, which is in most Western countries and Latin American countries, by the way, as well, needs to be decolonized because the histories of most countries in Southeast Asia show the opposite way, right? In which earlier acceptance of particularly trans persons has now been criminalized, particularly because of these colonial regimes. And there are sometimes processes towards progress, but sometimes also a backlash, like in Indonesia. The Indonesia Tanpa Pacaran case is indicative again of another trend that we see, a global trend, by the way, in an anti-gender backlash that we see all over. This anti-gender backlash actually started after the ICPD conference in 1994, when the first big international conference, when the issue of sexual pleasure came on the table. And immediately the IOC, the group of Muslim countries, and the Vatican, so Catholic and Islam, came together and they managed to exclude such kind of language, sexual pleasure and things and so on, as a human right, from the Beijing conference, which was held in the following year, 1995. So, in spite of all their differences, these two religions have come together in formidable allies, becoming formidable allies in their struggle against anti-gender issues. Now, the third issue of today's panel is, for me, quite a new issue, but of course in Indonesia, a very important issue also. Look at what happened in the recent Kanjuruhan tragedy, where almost, I think, 130 people died in a football game after a football game in Malang. And what we see here is that a group of women come together as football fans in this very violent climate of Indonesian football fans. And this is, of course, both indicative of changing gender relations in the country, and I would like to hear the views of the author about that, but also of the interconnections of global discourses, because this is a very close case of important case of an important discourse which of course are always given a local twist. Now, I will stop here, and we have a number of, we have three presenters, and the first one is Ernie Curiati, who will talk about the issue of the anti-gender backlash in the group called Indonesia Tanpa Pacaran, Without Dating, and she will introduce herself, and I now give the mic to Ernie. Ernie, please, you've got the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Saskia, for the introducing me and also like introduce my topic in early. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the committee that already like accept my paper and my abstract to present here. And I would like to share the PowerPoint. I think I already, okay, it's Saskia, can you see my PowerPoint already?
Yes, you do it. Yeah, and please
wait.
introduce yourself. Tell the audience what you're studying and what you're working on.
Okay. Well, before I explain a little bit about what I'm doing and also about this paper, I would like introduce myself. I'm Ernie Kurniati. I'm a graduate student at Islamic University, State Islamic University, Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta, and also I'm a junior researcher and program officer in Division for Applied Social Psychology Research. And I also like working voluntarily as a junior researcher in lab Bantanology, State Islamic University, Sultan Maulana Hasanuddin Banten. So this topic related what my previous research about social movement that's happened in Banten that's related with the social religious movement. So this is not really new for me, but I'm trying to dig what can I present, and also like what can I propose. That's because it's not so many people like talking about this. I just found like 2 articles talking about Indonesia Tanpa Pacaran, and also I want to like see the other perspective, like specifically about how's like the words, the narrative that they use for for getting like more followers on Instagram, and also in offline event. So this article, wait, I cannot see. Yeah, this article aims to analyze the narrative used by the official account of Indonesia Without Dating movement on Instagram that promotes an ideology to return to Al-Quran teachings. But I want to highlight that in this paper, I only want to like not only about again the dating, the ayat, or how the narrative talking about against dating in Indonesia, but also like they want more than that. They want to ask people, young people mostly in Indonesia, to return to Islam and also like becoming more religious. Well, this is the account. You can see here the followers is almost like 1 million, like 800 more. Is like since 2015 they was built. The followers always usually increase every year. So I think it's really interesting for me, and also not many studies talking about this in Indonesia, because there are some difficulties to get and reach a person inside this organization if you don't really like joining the organization. So what I want to tell you, I use like a discourse analysis, so I don't like interview for the members or also the managers, because it's really difficult for me to join the group and also to reach the man, the leader. It's really difficult because they are so close to the other researcher to get know more about them and like to write about them. So it's like very tricky for me to talk about this. But yeah, I'm here like I will like discuss based analysis, and also like I'm trying to be objective, not really like becoming like subjective in this analysis. But here the result of I found based on my analysis, there are two topics that really interesting to get know more. It's the first is about the narrative that they use is like commonly they put the tagline and also the main narrative that they use is you want to go to hell or heaven. I mean, dating versus ta'aruf. I mean, there is no there is no tolerance about pacaran or dating in Indonesia in this community. So if you want to go to heaven or paradise, I mean, if you want to be good person in Islam, you have to to break up with your girlfriend or boyfriend, or you have if you want to like have a partner, you have to do ta'aruf before marriage. And the second is about women's chastity as a crown. Like they like very high, very like strict. I mean, also point a woman as a, like as a they as a object, because women always they put woman as object, and they think that woman like avoiding this dating because they need to like keep their purity, their virginity. So I think it's like put woman as an object. Well, the theme about how I got the topic dating versus ta'aruf from this narrative, because I found there's many like many posting that many like a narrative that they use related to the if you want to go being someone better and really being like a good Muslim, you have to break up with your girlfriend and boyfriend. It's like you can see on the post. I mean, you can see on the Instagram. Their narrative always like that. I mean, there is no tolerance about dating. I can share to you about the one of the posting one of the status they post on Instagram that in English we call it if you need something if you need to like avoiding dating, you have to like have a good intention to regarding to God, only like to God. So I mean, they like having like really nice conversation, nice narrative to ask people like okay agree with their opinion. So it's very interesting because they seldom to use ayat or hadith about dating, but they use like a common words and also psychological approach to get more people to attract people to follow them. Like this, the narrative that they use is not like hadith, not like Quran, but they use a very common word. Like for example, here in Indonesia, yang pacaran bakal putus, yang putus bakal sakit hati. It's mean like if you get if you broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you will get her broken heart, and the only like the only redemption or like the only cure for your broken heart is only God, or something like that. It's very interesting because so many like people like, well, they're like mostly young people doesn't want to like understanding more about the ayat and also the verse, also the hadith. They clearly want to be like instant, like instant narrative. So they like so many people really like to join this group because it's very instant for them. Like, and also it's like black and white. If you wanted to be, if you want to hijrah to Islam, better to be better person, you have to be, to break up and you don't it's not allowing to have a date with someone. Yeah, I mean, in this also they also like put the evidence of the what we call it, like the dangers of having dating. Like for example, they put the news from local for a nation from national news. They're talking about the youth people that got treated from ex-boyfriend, like ex-boyfriend treat for the girl, like sharing the nude picture. So I think the approach of this account or this group community is like very interesting, like because they like not only using the verse and also like Quran verse, but also using like they give evidence, and also they give like really nice words to ask people join this book. And also not only about what I said, it is not about like they use the word, but also sometimes they also like using Quran or Hadith to propaganda people, to attract people follow them. So this is one of the example they're posting about becoming someone to be patient to avoiding disaster, because yeah, because pacaran or dating is really really bad for them. And about women here, they put women as like an object, because in this narrative, if in this content they said that if woman without a crown, I mean without pure crown, they will like be respected by women, but by men or by people again. I mean, how to be like good woman if you are not ready, you are not virgin anymore? How to be become a good woman if you are not pure anymore? I mean, it's like put woman as an object. I mean, okay, I mean, yeah, I mean they are sometimes putting a woman as an object to their propaganda. And yeah, I think the critic from for me to this narrative is why like always putting woman as the second person, that they have to be at home, they have to be like woman is aurat, woman is not forbid, not allowing to go outside with not mahram and etc. But about men, they don't mention any men like the dangers. I mean, or like a man, if they man is not virgin anymore, they never mention about it. So it's very like like they put the woman like not really like equal with man. But again, they always mention about how dangerous pacaran or dating for women, only for women, not like for men, like how's really like a woman always becoming someone like they always judge a woman as a person that's really like, okay, they have a, like aim to protect women from the dangers, but also they don't know about the equal, not really like don't know about the equality. Sometimes they also talking about polygamy, that polygamy is good way to avoid the zina, and also to avoiding like something bad from women. Sometimes is also like, well, it's really interesting. And also not only about that, that also like promote like souvenir or something to I mean like to support their community. So the way they like promoting the souvenir and etc. is really like in this modern era is very like very famous, like, and also like is there have like more than 10 branches in Indonesia, and one of the highest followers from Banten and also from Jakarta. In Banten as well, I tried to join the community because I'm so curious how in online so massive, but how in offline. And also I tried to join the group, to involve myself in the group, and also to joining the community as a member. And I found that mostly the one like 90-100% 90% the members are women, and also 100% in Banten like they are like mostly special for women, but not like okay, but also for women, for men also available, but it's mostly for only women. And I joined the deep talk Muslimah in Banten. I found that also it's massive in Banten as offline. I mean, I don't take research in other places, but my focus in Banten, because Banten is one of the highest followers that from the others. And I found that this ideology like return back to Islam not only like limit from the topic of pacaran or dating, but also they spread up to the other massive ideology about Islam. They want becoming like Khalifa or something. So it's like related, I think, I am really interested to know more about this community, that because it's related with the previous community that forbidden in Indonesia, HTI, Hizbut Tahrir Indonesia, because the owner also the ex of the HTI, and also mostly the people that joining this group also like they were like in HTI. So I think I need more deep analysis about this, like because I also interested to do offline research to joining the group, and also like how interact with the members and why they want to join this group and etc. I think this is the last slide for me. Thank you so much. I hope you get what I mean, because I hope my English is not really bad, and so you can understand what I say. Thank you so much, Saskia.
Okay, Ernie, thank you so much. No, your English is quite good, and I think what you wanted to convey is very clear. There are also many other groups that link up or that have similar issues like I-line, all that. We can probably go into that more into the discussion. But first we have our other speakers. And Charles is the next one, Charles Erizaladia from Philippines. And the mic is for him now. Can you open the mic, Charles?
Thank you, Saskia.
And introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Saskia, for moderating. Good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon sa lahat. I'm Charles Ladia from the Philippines. I'm a PhD student in political science at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and my presentation for the ALTERSEA conference is titled Queering Local Governments, LGBTIQ plus movement organizations as strategic brokers for sexual citizenship in Philippine local governments. Unlike traditional anchors of citizenship rooted in nation states and geographic territories, sexual citizenship takes after the domains of sexuality, sexual rights, and relations beyond the socially accepted male-female binary. For those who identify with genders outside the binary, the intertwined nature of one's sexuality and its social acceptance determines their access to and enjoyment of human rights, specifically their legal, political, and civil rights, which can include civil partnerships, territorial access, and even educational, health, and employment opportunities in most regions in the world. In the Philippines, although its constitution provides provisions on equal rights and it is a party to many international human rights conventions, its LGBTIQ plus community is continuously being challenged in attaining equal rights as citizens. Since the majority of its population practices a religion, specifically a Roman Catholic nation, sexual citizenship is continuously being shaped and informed by morality politics, and consequently, this impacts national policies and public opinion on gender and sexuality. Hence, these may not be responsive to the experiences and discrimination of the LGBTIQ plus community. These realities encourage the community to represent and assert their sexual rights in decision and policy-making spaces. Hence, the LGBTIQ plus movement emerged in the 1990s. Considered as the youngest movement in the Philippines, the LGBTIQ plus movement is affiliated to the global fight for equal recognition in formal and informal systems of politics. Locally, the movement advocates for the passage of the Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity Expression Equality Bill, or the SOGI Equality Bill, or what we call the Anti-Discrimination Bill. Its arduous legislative process, which has been pending in Congress for 20 years as of writing, reflects the power dynamics between political institutions in the Philippines, specifically the role of the religion in policymaking in the Philippines. Since it has been a challenge to pass a national legislation, the movement lobbied for the passage of anti-discrimination ordinances in local government units, or LGUs. We have currently around 80 anti-discrimination ordinances around the Philippines, but what I will talk about in this paper would be the two. Quezon City Ordinance number 2357, which is also called the Gender Fair Ordinance of 2014, and Manila's LGBTQI Ordinance of 2020. These local legislation evidence the changing roles and functions of LGUs, or local governments, and how they became more aware of the demands of these marginalized communities. My paper asks the question, how do LGBTIQ plus movement organizations in Quezon City and Manila, two of the biggest cities in the Philippines, broker with communities and local governments in spaces for participation provided by anti-discrimination ordinances. I investigated the roles of the LGBTIQ plus movement in maximizing these civic spaces as strategic brokers. Brokering reveals not just the communicative aspects of movements, but also their rhetorical potential in asserting sexual citizenship and its related rights to governments and challenging its heteronormative structures. The policy transaction possibly queers local governments, and this queering of local government provides a glimpse on the changing roles of local governments in reaching out to marginalized sectors like the LGBTIQ plus community. I assert that the significance of this study lies in the evaluation of the anti-discrimination ordinances as a policy that democratizes government spaces towards collaboration with non-government organizations and in the process recognizes and protects the sexual citizenship of the LGBTIQ plus citizens. Further, this paper advocates for a safe space for everyone, no matter the gender, identity, or sexual expression. The framework that I used in analyzing the experiences of these LGBTIQ plus movement organizations is strategic brokering. The most crucial actor in the process of fighting for the recognition of sexual citizenships are not just only citizens, but also movement organizations from the LGBTIQ plus community. Their inclusion in government spaces designates them not only as beneficiaries of these policies, but also as shared interest groups as they represent the community. But these spaces are only as important as the actions that these organizations can do within them. And strategic brokering as a framework is very helpful in fulfilling this approach. According to McAdam, Taro, and Tilly, brokering is the linking of two or more currently unconnected social sites by a unit which mediates their relations with each other or with yet another site. This could happen between non-state and state actors, like social movements and local government in this study. Consequently, the absence of these brokers lessens the chances of communities and governments to communicate with one another, and the presence of these strategic brokers have found out to be very beneficial, specifically to the communities that they want to represent, and the acknowledgement of the local governments or governments in general in terms of the rights and the privileges of these communities as well. So ultimately, brokering of LGBTIQ plus rights in government challenge the heteronormative structures and introduce an inclusive approach to governance. Brokering is not only a part of attaining sexual citizenship, but I argue that this contributes to the process of queering local governments as it actively engages concerned citizens and civil society organizations, making them direct clients of government programs. For my methodology, I interviewed different members of LGBTIQ plus organizations, which are active in the two cities mentioned, which are Quezon City and Manila. These are the two most populous cities, and this is where a lot of substantial movement actions of the LGBTIQ plus organizations were observed. So this is the list of the 7 different organizations and members that I interviewed. As you might have noticed, they come from different sectors. There's a research sector, a human rights sector, there's also a student sector, and also from different spectrum of the LGBTIQ plus community. The method that I used is called the focus group interviews, wherein I used a set of questions deliberately sequenced or focused to move the discussion towards concepts of interest to the researcher. It's very important that we give them a safe space. Specifically, they're fighting for something in terms of a very sensitive topic. So we have to provide them a permissive and a non-threatening environment so they can share their instances as well. And the goal of this study is not to aggregate their experiences, but to establish a collective view from their stories of brokering with LGUs and LGBTIQ plus community. So let me share with you some results and findings. In terms of these two ordinances on anti-discrimination, we see that there are similarities and differences. For the similarities, both ordinances focused on the different spaces where discrimination happened, for instance, employment or work, education, delivery of goods, accommodation, public ridicule, verbal and nonverbal harassment, and detention. But of course, there are differences as well in terms of the ordinances of Quezon City and of Manila. For Quezon City, they have a pride council, but the focus of the implementation of the anti-discrimination focuses on the lowest level of governance, which is the barangay. for the Philippines, which is like a community government in the Philippines. And then what's quite interesting is that the Quezon City government actually gives through its ordinances four slots for representatives from non-government organizations. On the other hand, when we go to the city of Manila, it has its own council, the Manila Gender Sensitivity and Development Council, in its local government. It also introduces the LGBTQ plus assistant desks in different barangays, and it tries to extend the anti-discrimination policies even in online spaces as well. If we are going to look into how these different local LGBTIQ plus movement organizations try to penetrate in terms of their influence in local governments, they start always with working with LGBTIQ plus communities. So strategic brokering specifically focuses on how these LGBTQ plus movement organizations penetrate these communities in terms of making sure that they are actually capacitated to represent their own rights. So their goal is not only to represent the community, but also to capacitate them through different information drive, through different skills training, so that in the future they can represent themselves in these public spaces as well. It's very important that these organizations also conducted these activities in order for them to create a collective view of what the issue is all about, not only through the movement organizations, but with the government themselves as well. And as organizations immersed in these communities, they also gain the members' trust, the members' stories, and their experiences that can also build their capacity as representatives as well. Once they have done working with the LGBTIQ plus community, the second step in strategic brokering is they try to network within themselves. What's quite interesting is that because it's only a small circle of advocates, they know each other during our interview. They were also open in sharing their best practices with one another in building communication infrastructures that could help them represent one another. And one of the many things that I found really interesting is that they really needed this connection amongst each other so that they can have a support structure when, for instance, government agencies or government officials would not believe them or would not acknowledge what they are going through. So these networks of LGBTIQ plus movement organizations are very important in brokering as well. The third is, after they got these stories, after they know the best practices from one another, they also are very proactive in translating the narratives of the LGBTIQ plus community into comprehensible demands for local government. A lot of my participants are sharing that local governments it's not automatic for them to be able to understand what the LGBTIQ plus community are demanding from them. So the role of strategic brokers, specifically of LGBTIQ plus movement organizations, is to translate these stories into something that people outside the community or people with power through local government can relate with and can fully understand. And finally, they are very much active in brokering with local officials. Specifically, in these spaces given to them, they try to assert to the local government that the anti-discrimination ordinances are there. Therefore, they should be heard in policy and decision-making spaces of the local government. What's quite important is how they share their what do you call that? Their sadness in terms of saying that some local governments are not proactive as what the anti-discrimination ordinances are instituting or are mandating. So they try to actively assert and actively demand from the government that they should not be reactive in looking out for LGBTIQ plus community. But while they are doing all of these things together as they try to penetrate in important policy making and decision making spaces, they also experience several issues in strategic brokering. First is that local officials or local government officials tend to be gatekeepers of policy making. No, these local officials tend to really be protective of their rights as public officials. So sometimes they do not listen to these LGBTIQ plus movement organizations. They also notice that it depends on the infrastructure of support from these local governments in terms of their equality, in terms of how they can implement the anti-discrimination ordinances. Some do not have the capacity to implement it. Some have a good capacity to implement it. They also note that a lot of communities do not actually know about the anti-discrimination ordinances. So that is a big problem because, of course, ownership of these ordinances are important so that they can definitely impact, or they can definitely know where to go if they have been discriminated. And finally, there is also a connection between local leaders and some LGBTIQ plus organizations. And some organizations are asking or telling us that some organizations are closer to the government. That's why their demands are met when you compare it to other organizations as well. So to conclude, this aspect of strategic brokering is a continuous process that these LGBTIQ plus movement organizations are experiencing and doing as they assert with one local government organization at a time. And these ADOs, as you can see, have created civic spaces which invited organizations to participate in different activities with the local government units. And we see the 4 different strategic brokering phases linking to the LGBTIQ plus community, networking and collaborating with one another, translating the needs of the community into comprehensible policies, and transacting with local government officials. This constant strategic brokering of LGBTQ plus organizations enables queering of the top-down approach enforced by local government. The roles of organizations as strategic brokers are necessary to redefine the political agenda, specifically, and I quote, in troubling normality in public administration. End of quote. The role of LGBTQ plus organizations in reminding the LGUs of their roles, commitments, and passage of the ADO is a necessary proactive step as a strategic broker. And we also see here the rhetorical potential of these movement organizations in asserting these stories from communities and how these non-state actors or civic society movement sustain a civic space in government and transform the bodies of LGBTIQ plus not only as passive recipients of government measures, but as an active contributor to it as well. The role of movement organizations in asserting sexual rights in local government opens the possibility of queering these public institutions. If the queer local governments meant that policies and programs to protect the sexual citizenship of LGBTIQ plus communities are automatically streamlined in the government's policy and decision making, the passage of these anti-discrimination ordinances did not necessarily lead to this outcome. These organizations wish for more active participation and commitment of the local governments in mainstreaming and communicating the ADOs to different communities and implementing its provisions in a consistent and widespread manner. Ultimately, the most important impact of queering local government is the empowerment of LGBTIQ plus communities and members, and their voices are sure to be heard and included in governmental affairs. The spaces provided by local governments were empirical support that LGUs continue to include the specific needs of their community in their policy and decision making. To conclude, this exercise can only be ensured if LGBTIQ plus movement organizations continue to actively pursue and maintain these spaces and to demarcate locations within and relationship to a wider social process, including the multiple circuits of power that operate being an LGBTIQ plus in the Philippines and in the world. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Charles, for a very interesting presentation. I'm, of course, particularly interested in this because in your neighboring country, Indonesia, as you very well know, exactly the opposite is happening. Their homosexuality is being criminalized now, and particularly at the local level through what they call perda, regional regulation. So when again, we see this great diversity in one country. Local ordinances can help the emancipation of, in this case, sexual minorities. In another country, local ordinances or regional regulations, as they're called, actually criminalize in this case, homosexuality. And gender issues, of course, is a similar concern. Okay, now we're moving to the last speaker of today, Bayu Mitra, who is going to take us into the world of women's soccer fans in Indonesia. Bayu.
Okay. Thank you for the chance, Professor Saskia. Let me to share my PowerPoint. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Taiwan time. Today, I would like to present about my research paper entitled El Ultimo Ultras, an Italian movie inspiring the progressive football funds movement in Indonesia. And my name is Bayu Mitra Kusuma. I'm a PhD student in a PhD program in Asia Pacific Regional Studies, College of Humanities and Social Sciences, National Tonghua University in Taiwan. First of all, I would like to say that actually my presentation about this research. This research actually is incidental research because last semester when my professor gave assignment to make a mini research about gender in each student country, and then I decide to took this title, and I would like to say sorry if my English is not good enough, but I hope you can enjoy it. Okay, let's start from the introduction. Okay, related to my title. So this slide is about the woman supported in Indonesia that I would like to describe today. So you can imagine that is the style of new movement of Indonesian football supporter. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesian football competition until now is often seen as a masculine sport that is only suitable for men supporter. Why? Because in Indonesian football, display strength, endurance, involves physical violence, reinforcing the notion of male physical talent. So many people say if you come to Indonesia and you watch the football in the stadium, you not only watch the football but also MMA. So many people say that Indonesian football is a combination between football and mixed martial art. So with one ticket, you can watch the variety of sport, not only football but also mixed martial art. That is the figure of Indonesian football that full of violence and also physical strength. Violent and clashes in Indonesia football often causes a lot of losses, from infrastructure damage to the death of supporters. Like the Professor Saskia mentioned before, that yes, we send a deep condolence to the Kanjuruhan tragedy, because more than 100 become victim in this tragedy, and this is the second biggest tragedy in world football until today. So, because the condition of Indonesian football is, many people say it's not suitable for the women, so the involvement of women in football has always been regarded as unusual. So, if a woman come to a stadium, she will become the center of attention of the audience in the stadium. And this condition also supported by the Indonesian broadcaster. When they saw the beautiful woman in the stadium, the focus of camera always in that woman. So the gender harassment also did by the Indonesian football broadcaster actually. On the one hand, the presence of women supporters in the stadium stand gives that impression that football now is a modern sport that can be enjoyed by all gender. But on the other hand, the presence of women supporters is often seen as complementary and subordinate to the sport organization, which is dominated by men. So the presence of women in Indonesian football stadium, something like ambivalence. In one side, it's good to promote that football is the modern football. to the all community level, to all background of society, without without consider the differences of gender, economy, and something like that. But in other hand, many people say that actually the presence of women in stadium is only for a complementary. For example, like I mentioned before, that in Indonesian football broadcast, when the broadcaster saw the woman in the stadium, the camera always always shoot to the woman. So in this condition, the ladies kurvasut is rise. Ladies kurvasut, or LCS, appeared and changed the landscape of football fans. They are fans of the PSS Sleman Football Club, which was founded on the inspiration from the Italian movie entitled El Ultimo Ultras. Why we need to examine the existence of Ladies Kurvasut, the woman member of the Brigada Kurvasut, supporter of PSS Sleman Football Club. Why? The first reason is because BCS and LCS, the pioneer of the modern and progressive Indonesian football fans revolution, with chants, with creative chants, creative choreo and something like that. And the second one, BCS and LCS formed when PSS Sleman was relegated to a lower tier of Indonesian football pyramid and slumped at the time. And the third one, in 2017, BCS and LCS received an award from the Copa 19 football media as the best ultras in Asia. Compete with Urawadet Diamond, from Japan, East Bengal from India, and many more. What is the significance of this research? From a sociological perspective, this research is important because it discusses the problem at grassroots society that lead to social conflict and even death. In Indonesia, football is more than identity. So when we talk about football, this is touch the grassroots society, and in many cases, the clash between football supporter lead to social conflict and death, like in Kanjuruhan tragedy in this year. And from a gender perspective, this research is important because it raises the issue that women have the same right to enjoy football as a sport or entertainment. Women has a right to visit a football stadium with the safety condition. Football, in order to football suitable for all gender. So what is the research question in this research is how El Ultimo Ultras influenced the LCS, Ladies Kurvasut movement, in changing the Indonesian football fans image. Okay, I move to the research method in this presentation. To obtain data in this research, the data collection techniques used are the first one, interview. But due to the uncertain situation of the COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia at the time, the interview was conducted majority online. And also because my position right now in Taiwan, so I need to interview online, and all interviewed informant asked to remain anonymous. Why anonymous? Because this is the culture of ultra supporter. In ultra supporter, no one can open the identity, no one can open their position, no one can open their background. So all of informant asked to remain anonymous. And the second one, literature study. Due to the limitation of the interview process, I really understand about that. So the authors enrich the data with related documents such as scientific journal article, books, newspaper, internet, and other sources. Okay, we move to the result and discussion. Okay, first of all, I would like to describe about the origin of BCS and LCS, how they rise and how they are existent. PSS Sleman Football Club was established in 1976 with a home base in Sleman Regency, Yogyakarta Special Region. At the time, In 2000, in 2000, the first football supporter of PSS Sleman FC was established. Previously, the supporters were not coordinated until 2000, and the first coordinated group of supporters established we call Slemania or Sleman Mania, the fans of Sleman FC. We call Slemania. But because the clash in the internal of Slemania, due to the different ways and expression of showing their fanatism, and then the Ultras group abandoned its Slemania identity and formed BCS in 2020. So after 12 years, the existence of Slemania clash is happened, and then BCS was established in 2020. And then to strengthen the existence of female member in 2012 as well, BCS established the female group. It's called Ladies Kurvasut or LCS, what we study here. Okay, like I mentioned before that LCS existence was influenced by the Italian movie El Ultimo Ultras. One of the biggest point of inspiration they got from El Ultimo Ultras is the manifesto for equality and togetherness. Like I mentioned before, the centrality in Slemania is felt to accommodate the growing diversity. As a result, the BCS was established. BCS draw inspiration in their color, like in the first picture I showed to you. All of members use the black color, the black jersey, black merchandise, and then song, and also merchandise. But they broke away from Italy's brutal zealot in one noteworthy way, namely the growing presence of women in the stadium stand. So they took the creativity aspect of ultras, but they broke away the brutal identity of ultras. So they took the positive aspect of ultras and they broke the negative aspect of ultras. But before we continue, we need to understand what is the meaning of ultras. Ultras is the name for a group of football fans in Italia that began to emerge in the late 1960s until 1970s. In England, perhaps ultras is the same with the hooligan. Ultras tend to have high level of fanatism and extremism in providing support to the club, totality to the club. The Italian ones is united in the identity of BCS and LCS Sleman is often called the Italian Regency. So now in the football environment of Indonesia, Sleman Regency is popular with the Italian Regency. Let's see this picture. The first picture, this is a comparison between Stadio San Siro and Stadion Maguwo Harjo in Milan and in Sleman. So you can look the architecture of the stadium. It's mean that in Sleman, the government also support the claim that Sleman Regency is identical with Italian Regency through the architecture of stadium. And the second picture, I took this picture from the website of BCS and LCS. You can see the choreography. This is mentioned the Italian flag. So you can imagine the influence of Italian movie from the architecture and also from the choreography of the supporter. Okay, to explore how the existence of BCS and LCS, the first thing that I did was unboxing the official website, bcxxpss.com. From the 7th rubric, one of the most interesting is a term that is very rarely used in the world of football. That is a manifesto. The manifesto consists of 8 points, one of which is no leader, just together. So if you open the official website of BSS Sleman, the color of black is dominating because that is the identity of ultra supporter. The manifesto No Leader Just Together is the one in the one hand is very interesting to investigate. However, on the other hand, it was make me difficult to determine who are the central figures should be interviewed. That is the condition causes because in the ultra supporter once again no one can open the identity, no one can share their name, no one can share their position. But the point they always emphasize is that they are volunteers. They don't want to be called administrator or management. Therefore, there is no one name that has the right to represent the group as a whole. The manifesto, No Leader Just Together, means there is no hierarchical organizational structure, no definitive leader, no differences between men and women, and there is only togetherness. And although it has grown into a large group, BCS and LCS refuses to become an organizational that has a hierarchical organizational structure. It is intended that all members have the same rights and obligation in maintaining the existence of the organization. And many people confuse if no leader just together, how they decide the organizational movement. The answer is because the deliberative forum is a supreme power. BCS and LCS is a group of supporters who are very committed to realizing gender equality and fighting sexual harassment in stadium. So when LCS in action in the stadium stand, the security of LCS automatically become the shared responsibility of all BCS members. The position of male and female members in BCS is equal, therefore all have equal rights in determining the future of organization. So if you look at the right side, that is the article from bolasport.com that is about a deliberative forum held by BCS and LCS to decide about the organizational movement, organizational policy. The highest power of BCS is deciding everything is in a deliberative forum, starting from chants, choreography, finance, protest to the management, and others. And the last one, let's move to the conclusion. Sorry. From my presentation, I would like to conclude that LCS is a progressive football fund social movement initiated by educated youth women. The term curva sud is taken from the Italian language, which means sustain. The member of BCS and LCS mostly is the student, starting from junior high school, senior high school, and majority is university student. So from this background, we can imagine that they come from educated youth, so they have a skill in organization and then knowledge to how to manage many people in one organization. The term curva sud is taken from the Italian language, which means sustain. Yes, because after BCS abandoned from Slemania, they moved to the south stand of the stadium and show their creativity from the south stand of stadium. LCS leadership is collective, which is born in the manifesto No Leader Just Together. They organize members in ultra style but abandon the culture of violence. LCS is financially independent organization. Their income is obtained from the sale of merchandise with ultra's distinctive color and character. LCS has a strong and wide network among students, especially universities in the Yogyakarta Special Province area, and LCS has changed people's view on the football fans image from brutality to creativity, from masculinity to gender equality. Actually, I have a video, but because the video is very long, maybe I can share you the link in the end of this in the end of this session. You can enjoy the creativity of LCS. You can enjoy the choreography of LCS because their creativity now they change the image of supporter. Although not whole supporter of Indonesia, but at least in Yogyakarta, the existence of LCS and BCS become become a fresh phenomena for the Indonesian football development and gender equality in football. I think that's all. Thank you very much, and back to Professor Saskia. Thank you very much, and sorry if I have many mistakes.
No, Bayu. It was just fine, and for me very interesting. I must say, I mean, I'm here in Jakarta now, and I've never heard of this whole movement. So for me, it was very interesting. Okay, let us move to the discussion now. Truly would give me all the questions. That's what she promised just now in the chat. But we can also look what the chats give us. And otherwise, I have lots of questions. Wait a minute. There is one question from Aniela that I see here.
Actually,
is there?
Yeah, actually, it's a comment about the ultras. I mean, ultras, how they in crisis because there was a terrorist period between the extreme communists and the ultra neo-fascists. So, in the same time, was going on the ultras. But the question for Ifemaya was actually the question for Kusuma, Kusuma. Did you have seen the movie? Or do you see the movie Ultimo Ultras? And did you ask if the people then take this movie as example, have seen the movie? Because the movie itself don't have personally, I think, don't have any connection with ultras world, even in the football world. So if you probably ask Italian if the Ultimo Ultras is a movie for ultra, they answer no. It's more about try actually to explain the violation in the stadium, but generally it's not a movie that speak directly to ultras, even football. It's more about one guy can kill another man and remind what the father teach about sport. Is that it? The movie instead. So for me, because you said it's like example for the ultras movement in Indonesia, did you ask if you have ever seen the movie for thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anilo, sorry. Yes, Anielo, your name remembering me one of MotoGP rider from Italia, Andrea Iannone. Okay, thank you for your question and suggestion. I'm very lucky to meet you in this conference. So perhaps I need your suggestion, your advice to revise my paper. And yes, actually, I have watched the El Ultimo Ultras, but unfortunately, sometimes I'm not understand about the language and some of a scenario. But when I doing interview with interviewee, they always mention that yes, we got the inspiration from El Ultimo Ultras, and actually in Indonesia the first supporter who using the ultras nuance is the LCS. So they are the first supporter who declared that they use the ultras character. And when I asked to the other interviewee, I asked to them, what do you know about El Ultimo Ultras? Oh, sorry, I don't know completely about El Ultimo Ultras, but my colleague in the supporter always talk about El Ultimo Ultras. So actually, I never been saw the El Ultimo Ultras, but El Ultimo Ultras always being a discussion issue in the community. So actually, some of supporters they never been saw the El Ultimo Ultras, but they say that El Ultimo Ultras always become the discussion issue in the organization, something like that. Mr. Yanone.
Yeah, this is very strange, very intense, because they take an idea from the movie that no speak about ultras. So they creating a relation without see movie. It's very interesting, and also how they change the mini ultra. In Italy, it's very concept, very not bad. Yes, bad because it's connected with violence. People die. A majority of people they had ultras probably as people that have been in jail for years or have connection with mafia organizations sometimes. So it's very sometimes very extreme. So, but the interesting fact is how it's used in Indonesia, a movie that speak not about ultras, not about football, but it become about. So it's very interesting. It's just a comment actually because I'm from Italy. So actually in Italy probably it's really pretty movie is because it's considered a really low movie. No, it's not considered. But if you want to see another interesting movie about trust, it's now on Netflix. It's called Just Ultras.
Okay.
I try to explain Ultras.
Okay.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you for this discussion. And in relation to this discussion, before we move on to the other speakers, there is a question by Trulli, who says that the slogan, seeing no leader just together, that really reminds one of the anarchist movement, right? And now, of course, we move to the other extreme. Is there, I mean, in your interviews, did you notice anything about that people were familiar with or even supportive of anarchism in the sense that there's no power relation, no power structure, no hierarchy. We do everything together, which is, as Aniello says, very different from what's happening in Italy. So, I mean, on the one hand, we see that there is total local content to this international Italian issue movement. And on the other hand, we see something really so new, it is akin to anarchism. Where does it come from?
Okay. Actually, Professor, about the existence of Ladies Kurvasut, they always mention that this is not internationalization. This is not This is not globalization. This is not localization. But this is the glocalization, something like that. So they always claim that they mix between the characteristic of Italian ultras with the characteristic of Indonesian supporters, but abandoning the brutality, something like that. Okay, and let me to answer the next question from about the do the fans club receive any public fund? I think no, because Ladies Kurvasut and Brigada Kurvasut is independence club, in the independent supporter group. They don't want to receive any funding from everyone. They never receive the funding. They get funding by their efforts, something like selling the merchandise and something like that. But they never open donation. They never open funding from everyone, because in Indonesia mostly football always identical with politics, and they don't want to join in politics. So it's only about football and football. And
great. This immediately leads us to Ernie. Ernie, how would your group of Indonesia Tanpa Pacaran look at the kind of football fans, right? Look at this group of women ultras. They seem to be totally two ends of the spectrum, right? Did they ever mention anything? Do they ever meet? Do they ever discuss these kinds of issues? It should be totally blasphemous to them, right? Is it so?
Yeah.
Anyway, you have got
What?
the question, and now you can think about that. But I mean, there is a question from I think from Glory again. How about the founder of your movement, Indonesia Tanpa Pacaran, Laode Munafar? Who is that? Who is this founder? What kind of ideology or belief or religion does this person have? Is he very Salafist, very Wahhabist? How would you describe this person? How would you analyze this person? Well, it's a totally different ideology than from what we heard, the anarchism from the educated students, of course. If they come up with terms like local, then they've definitely read their post-structuralist literature, which is very different from the yellow book that your students would have listened to. Okay, Ernie.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Saskia, and thank you for the question that about the founder of Indonesia Tanpa Pacaran. To be honest, I don't know this person. I never met this person personally. I never know his actually his life and everything. But I cannot like give my opinion. Not I mean because it's not scientific. Because even though my opinion, beside my personal opinion, not because scientific or analysis based on many research resource, but I cannot answer based on scientific analysis, but I can like describe based on my experience when I was interviewing some members of this ITP for other research. I found that I don't know this person personally again, but I can describe based on the members, like generally, mostly the members. Usually they like related with the hijrah movement. Mostly the youth member, I mean, they are like related with the other community. Also, like in Banten, related with hijrah community. We call it. I forget the name, but it's related with Salafi movement. But I don't know this founder is related with the Salafism or not, because I cannot say, even though it's my opinion, it's not really appropriate to talk about this guy, because I really don't know about these guys personally. But for the based on the members ideology, they are mostly like in the Salafism, or what we call it. There are many types of ideology, Islamic ideology, like the left, right, the left, and also the right side. I mean, these members mostly they are in the left side. It mean like we call it like fundamentalism. That's they are mostly interpret the living hadith or tradition, or first based on the literature, or literally, or not like based on the culture and based on the other perspective about sociology or the other perspective. But I think my opinion and my experience, I think mostly the members are their fundamentalism. They are having a they are fundamentalist people, because when I joined the group, I got many message, I got many dakwah, I mean, that I received from my WhatsApp group, and also I received like the knowledge from the online like seminar. Literally, they interpret based on like the way how fundamentalists interpret. But to be honest, I cannot answer further about the Laode Munawar about this. Thank you. I'm so sorry if I cannot answer this.
No problem, no problem, no problem. This is maybe something that you can explore later.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have to interview this person, but you can probably find the interviews in somewhere else.
Yeah, to
in
be honest,
newspaper or whatever.
yeah, Bu Saskia,
But
to get involved in this group is very difficult. To get more
I
information, to interview, it's very difficult. I many times
Yeah.
to send a letter, to send a message to the center of community in Jakarta and also in Banten. I also try to join the group, but it's really difficult to get a chance to interview one of the the manager of the leader of this community. Is like I try to you know, like to join and to be member, but yeah, still like, you know, maybe they like thinking that I'm a spy or something, and they like reject
Yeah,
me
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
take interview.
Very clearly. And I mean, this in itself is very significant, right? The fact that you have such problems, and I mean, you have the proper Muslim gear, right? You wear a jilbab and all that. So you're not like me, foreign, white, and things and so on. I would be immediately discarded and seen as a
Yeah.
spy. So even when you wear the proper dress, even then you can't get access. This in itself is an important finding, right, for your research. But linked to that, if I look at that picture that you showed in your slideshow, I mean, you very clearly see that all these women don't have Indonesian dress, right? This is Arab dress.
I mean,
Honestly,
when I joined
these
the group, yeah, it's forbidden to wear. It's like not allowing. I mean, like they said that it's not sari if I just wearing hijab, but it's not dress fully like you know, like in dress fully from the top to the toe. But I need to wear something like we call it what we call it in English, but it's like a long dress. But if I just wearing like skirt or like a t-shirt, they feel like not comfortable. So if I want to like
yeah,
join the group,
clearly,
yeah,
yeah,
something like,
yeah.
yeah, they very strict with the woman. You know, I think based on my experience, they're easily to judge and also very judgmental person, because if they see like someone that not really sari, they will like, you know, like take a distance or something. And yeah, it's very sensitive to talk with them, because they are afraid about the HTI issues, because they're afraid they will be forbidden community, so they don't want to take more risk if they want to take interview. It's like it's very difficult.
Yeah, okay. And one last question to you, and then we move to Charles. Um, because linked to this, right? I mean, they're wearing not Indonesian dress, they're wearing Arab dress, right? And of course, this is in line with the Hattei view about the Caliphate and the importance of the Caliphate. But when, and this actually also immediately links to what Charles was saying, the regional regulations, as you very well know, most of them that prohibit homosexuality and that put on dress codes for women, right? And women can't go out at night. Many of the regional regulations are there. They always talk that they base themselves on two issues, on religion and on tradition, right? That's what they say. Um, and tradition, of course, it's totally false. I mean, Indonesian tradition is not like that. If you see a picture, for instance, of Indonesian women 50 or even 30 years ago, you wouldn't see this kind of dress in Indonesia, right? It's new, it's a new invention, right? It's not tradition. Um, in your Instagram account, in your discourse analysis, do you find something about that they talk about tradition as if they retroactively want to Arabize Indonesian history?
Yeah, I don't find any discourse or like a narrative for talking about the culture or tradition. Yeah, I mean, but they always highlight about the how should be women you know, keep their self, like keep their purity, keep their what we call it, like buying, yeah, like wearing like a proper dress or something like that. But I don't find any post from the Instagram or like from the Instagram especially. But it's other case, I found it in the field when I joined the group and also joined the seminar offline. I joined, and also like they, when they pray after seminar, they have a certain pray, and that's like the prayings like refers to us, to God, that want to Indonesia becoming and becoming like Islamic state or something. But yeah, again, it's not in offline, it's not in online, that's so that, but it's in offline, it's different, it's very different. So in online they just only like post something like related with common, with common with common like dangers and also the evidence of the news and etc. But in the offline they get more, I will get more information about the ideology that they want to be have a Islamic State or something like that. In the prayers, I have the recording, but I don't put in this paper because it's not like it's like different topic.
Okay, thank you so much for this clarification, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your paper. And this leads us immediately to what Charles was discussing. One of the questions is, I mean, Ernie could not go into the group, so by the way, I have a similar experience. I tried to do research on ILA, which is a similar group, right? And I couldn't get in, no way. Of course, my white face would immediately disqualify me. But the question that Truly has to Charles is, what kind of problems do you yourself, or could you, or maybe did you have yourself when, as a researcher, you search into this issue? Because, I mean, Christianity and the Catholic Church in the Philippines in particular, of course, is actually a rather conservative institution. I mean, when I remember the discussions on the health law a few years ago and things and so on, and on abortion, the Vatican and particularly the Philippine Church took very conservative positions. And on LGBTIQ, whatever you call it further, issues, the Church is also very conservative. Now, how does the Church impact your research?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, in the Philippines, we are 80 to 90% Catholic in the Philippines. So in terms of the SOGI Equality Bill, one of the pressures, that's why it's not yet institutionalized even after 20 years of it being passed in Congress, is the pressure from the Roman Catholic Church that the same-sex marriage will definitely open the gates of hell, it will definitely ruin family as institutions. So this rhetoric of the Roman Catholic Church has definitely impact on the passage of the SOGI Equality Bill. So a lot of these a lot of these LGBTIQ plus movement organizations, they try to distance the SOGI Equality Bill to the same-sex marriage. So they keep on trying to tell the government and the church that they are two different laws, that if one is being passed, it doesn't automatically mean that it will automatically have a same-sex marriage clause to it. So that is an aspect of pressure from the Roman Catholic Church, specifically, of course, when people vote. Sometimes they vote because of the church, because of their religion. So there's still pressure in terms of passing these gender-related laws. But in terms of being a researcher, I think the challenge that I was able to face is not because of the influence of the Roman Catholic Church, but the availability of these movement organizations, because they're quite busy doing a lot of things on a national scale, on a local scale. So the challenge that I faced was putting them together in one room. This is only through Zoom. And getting their experiences. And as much as possible, I want to make the research collaborative as much as possible. So every step of the way, while I'm doing my analysis, while I'm doing my writing, I try to consult with them. Did I get your statement right? Did I get the concept right? And I think these LGBTIQ plus movement organizations appreciate that collaborative aspect of research. And I think as a researcher, I also learned that because for them, they feel that sometimes they're being used in terms of research purposes, that once we have gotten data from them, that's it. So I try to be very conscious about that negative impact on the participants. So I try my best to consult them, to collaborate with them, and every step of the way, even now that I'm presenting my paper to you, I already asked them, is this the right way to analyze this position? Is this the right concept, or is the context well written, so that they know that they are a big aspect or a big factor in completing this research study.
Okay, and then Aniello had another question to you, and maybe Aniello himself can presenter?
Yeah. Actually, my question is more because I see you are from political science, and I also interested to politics in Indonesia. Actually, I also write my article on on Philippines, but I just realized that during my research I did not do much on norms or anti-norms against, for example, gender. So I want to ask you, do you think that with this new government will be more closer or more open for LGBT rights in Philippines? And during the period, there was also a rhetorical anti-gender or anti-LGBTQR in during his rhetoric, not just because is also from the war on drugs and terrorists, but I think also LGBTQ was a victim of the rhetoric. What do you think about this? Thank you.
Yes, that's a true observation that the Duterte, our president before, is very conscious of his impact in terms of his words. So there are a lot of anti-gender, anti-women, anti-LGBTQ plus in his public speeches. The question on whether it's an opening or closure in terms of the new government, of course, as you must probably know by now, that our new president is the son of Ferdinand Marcos Sr. In terms of his policies and promises, there are no clear signs yet in terms of his support or lack thereof to the LGBTQ plus community. Last March, during the elections, he mentioned that if ever the SOGI equality bill will be for his signature, he will definitely sign it. But in terms of his priority legislation that he said in his State of the Nation address last June or July, the SOGI equality bill is not in the list of priority legislation. And the president doesn't have that concrete plans yet, sadly, in the Philippines. So that is something that I'm also excited to see in the coming months. What is going to happen if the SOGI equality bill can definitely reach the presidency. But as of now, the SOGI equality bill is still pending in both houses, both the lower house and the upper house of the Philippines, and it's still the same long, slow process from the committees all the way to the chambers, all the way to the president. So I'm also very excited to the question of Anielo to observe what will happen. Is President Marcos someone accepting of this policy, because that was his promise during the elections as well. But of course, these anti-heteronormative agenda could face a lot of issues as it goes to the presidency in the future.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Charles. We have a few minutes left. We are supposed to stop at 1:45, so we have a small break. I mean, among I hear strange noise. Sorry. Among the panel, do you have any of you have any questions to each other? I mean, now that you've heard about each other's presentations and interest in research, do you have any questions to each other? Bayu doesn't have any questions. Charles, do you have any questions to either Ernie or Bayu?
I think not question, but I think comments in terms of how we can put together, for instance, this is the trajectory of gender concerns. We see that in sports and fashion and even in local legislation, we see how gender and social movements can impact our research as well. And second is how our identity as researchers can actually be protected or also challenged by our researchers as well. Like for instance, Ernie was really committed in doing her research, and even Bayu, for instance, as a sports fan, and even for me as a social movement activist and scholar. So we see that our identities are completely entangled in the research that we are doing. So that's quite interesting, an interesting observation for me in this panel.
I have, in relation to that, one issue that I would like to discuss with all of you who are gender sexuality researchers. I mean, ASEAN, as you all know, is supposed to discuss our human rights, no more than discussing. Is there any hope that ASEAN will ever support a progressive gender and sexual rights agenda? Do you have any hopes of that? Is there any way in which, within an ASEAN framework, we can move to some more progressive policies? What do you think about that? Can we think Southeast Asian related, or do we just keep hold up in our own countries, in our own issues? Is there a way in which we can move forward and become a more collective strength to think about fulfilling the women's sexual human rights that most of our countries actually have fully accepted, right, in their international commitments? All of them have accepted CEDAW. All of them have accepted the ICCPR, right? All of them have accepted the major human rights document, but still they violate many of these norms all the time. Is there a way in which we can kind of bring this agenda forward? What do you think?
Yes, thank you for the chance, Professor Saskia. We know that today Indonesia is very something like many people in Indonesia today they have a good awareness to the gender equality, and in the administration under President Widodo, we know that President Widodo has many women minister, the biggest number of women minister in Indonesian history. So I believe in the future, Indonesia will be better in terms of gender equality, protect women from sexual harassment, and more concerned to the human right and law supremacy. Thank you.
Ernie, do you agree?
Well, yeah. I'm as a woman, Muslim. Yeah, and also I'm a junior researcher. I'm in academic, and also like trying to become someone that's really like analyzing everything based on the science. Yeah, but again, yeah, in Indonesia, I don't want to talk about the policy and about the government, etc. But the society itself, for me, it's difficult, you know, to wearing something that what I want. I need to wear something that people want. It's like what one of the right that they got from me, because I don't have the right to what I want to wear in my city, for example, because they less tolerant about how they treat a woman, because they thought that but they think that woman is like something that have to be covered everywhere, like even for the voice and also for the body, for everything. For I mean, so I think as academy, as student in university, and also as person in society, in like a very strict society, I feel not really free now. The society like take away my chance to be someone, you know, that I want, because I was born in like in the city that they less tolerant and they very strict about religion, and they but look at the other gender, like men, they can do whatever they want. Even me, it's really difficult to continue my study because I'm woman. It's difficult for me to go outside. Yeah, it's really like I think it's really important to not only give a chance to politician. It's not only like give a number, increase the number, but also increase the tolerance about that. Because also in Islam we have the interpretation about the hijab, like that a woman also can we don't have to wear hijab. Like for example, like Quraisy have interpretation. I mean, like, yeah, but here like they don't accept the opinion, they don't accept the interpretation. So I think in my city, even though in Banten, the numbers of the women involved in the position is increased, but it's not it doesn't change anything. Like they still like you know, like put woman as something like different, like not like a man. To be honest, in myself right now, I cannot open my hijab because the society will judge me. They will like think that I'm bad person, I'm naughty girl or something, because I'm not wearing a proper hijab. Or yeah, thank you. I think it's really important to bring this topic. Like yeah, in the international conference, and we make a policy brief for the government and etc.
But actually, I
Thank
think
you.
the condition of society right now is better than before. For example, in my village, previously, women always in the kitchen. But after the education level of society in my village is better now, so many women as bachelor, so many women as master, and they can develop their future. Have a good career and many more. So I think through education we can change the situation. The small example in my village. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
well,
good.
one of the issues, of course, that is very difficult and that education in itself will not solve is the binary division, right, between male and female. And perhaps Charles can discuss that with us, and whether ASEAN is any hope for our future to break through this binary division.
There is this article that I read that there should be an alternative approach to the ASEAN convention. For instance, as we all know, the ASEAN communication platform could always be top down, meaning all of the ASEAN leaders are deciding for local communities, no, just like in the Philippines. If the national government cannot protect the LGBTIQ plus rights because of these different policies, we try our best to find spaces and find ways in order for the LGBTIQ plus community to be protected. That's why a lot of these movement organizations are focusing on communities, are focusing on local governments, so that these policies can be institutionalized from the local government. And I think it's very important to restructure, for instance, the ASEAN, wherein the community leaders could be the one changing or challenging the structures, that it's not the top leaders who will decide for ASEAN, but it's the community, it's the social movements, it's the civic society leaders who really know what the communities, specifically the gendered communities, are experiencing. So if we are going to conclude with maybe a policy recommendation here, I think it's very important to allot more spaces for community leaders in the ASEAN, so that we hear what is really happening in grassroots communities of each country or each region in the ASEAN region. And for me, that is how an alternative platform for communication should be maintained in an international organization like the ASEAN.
I think this is a wonderful moment to stop our discussion at this point. As we heard also yesterday in the discussions, the community developments are extremely important. They really give us food for thought, and they're going on even in Myanmar, where hope has become scarce, right? But they go on, they continue, they work, they fight for more equality. And I think it's at the community level, I think also that we need to link up more, because our countries are very divided, right? I mean, I don't know much about the Philippines, being an Indonesian specialist, and about Myanmar also, I don't know so much, and Myanmarese don't know so much about Brunei maybe, or about Thailand or Laos. So that's why I think we need this ASEAN level discussions at the community level in order to put some more fire into these debates and to come up with what at grassroots level is really living and working for us. But every community, as we know from Ernie's example, is of course not always progressive, right? I mean, there are also quite a few community movements that are not having a progressive agenda. So we continue. ALTERSEA continues, and we will come back to you in, I think, 10 minutes, right? I think I give the microphone now to Truly, so that we have a little break for tea, and then we continue with our discussions for the rest of this afternoon. I would like to thank the presenters very much for this very interesting discussion. Thank you.